everybody, and welcome to the Bob Stoops app. I'm Brad McMullen, along with Hall of Fame football coach Bob Stoops. And boy, oh boy, Saturday lived up to the billing. Some fantastic college football games as we're looking to next Saturday. Let's start first, though, with that Tennessee-Georgia game. Tennessee was number one for just 1 week, and the Bulldogs played big.
Yeah, they sure did. You have to give it to them. Just after watching Tennessee for several games, they looked unstoppable. So that defense for Georgia must be obviously for real. They were a year ago too. So you got to give it to them. They played a great game and really won handily. I think Tennessee scored late to make it look closer than it really was. So you got to give it to Kirby Smart in Georgia for a great game.
Now, a little over 2 years ago in the preseason show, we were talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, and you were saying they've recruited really well the last few years. They're going to play well. They won the national championship last year. This year, preseason show, you said the same thing. You may not know the names, but the replacements are very talented, and they're living up to that billing.
Yeah, they really. I think I heard something the other day. In 9 games, they've only given up 8 touchdowns. And they had probably 7, 8 guys go into the NFL a year ago from that defense. So, they've just reloaded, and Kirby's a great defensive guy and has a great background, and obviously he's getting it done again with these guys. And I love their quarterback. Stetson Bennett is such a gamer, such a good player. They're going to be hard to beat in this whole, in this run to the championship.
Another major game in the SEC last week. LSU at home beat Alabama. Brian Kelly in his rookie season for the Tigers. A huge, huge win. Now you've got something really cool set up. If LSU wins out, they'll actually represent the West. They could play Georgia. If LSU was able to beat Georgia, you'd have a 2-loss SEC team. This is a lot of what ifs. But boy, oh boy, you got a 1-loss Tennessee team, and you could have a 1-loss Georgia team, and then you've got a 2-loss LSU team. Who gets into the Final Four or something like that?
Yeah, it's like you said, there's still a good number of games here to be played, but it could happen. LSU is really obviously catching their stride,
yes.
With the new coaching staff and Coach Kelly and the way they played an excellent game, back and forth game with Alabama, and made the key plays down the stretch to win. And you got to give it to them, the moxie, the courage, the whatever, to go for 2 at the end of the game to finish it off. And sometimes you got a good 2-point play in your pocket that you think this is just the right time, and obviously it worked for them, so good for them.
Yeah, congratulations to them. And all right, talking about the Big 12 now, a huge matchup coming up this week between Texas and TCU. College Game Day will be there for that one. You look at TCU. Most people thought, hey, they're gonna lose here, they're gonna lose here, they're gonna lose here. They haven't lost at all. Matter of fact, the Horned Frogs have been pretty spectacular in the 3rd and 4th quarter. But there were some games early on, Kansas State as one of them, where they didn't play well to start that game.
They've had a couple games where they're 14 down or 17 down early in the game or in the first half, and then then they've made the plays and stormed back to win those games. You're playing with fire there, though. When you haven't been so dominant to control games from start to finish, shows you're vulnerable. And going down to Austin, you would think this is the one they're going to be vulnerable to. And you got to give it to, I got to give it to Texas for last week's game at Kansas State. You know how many teams they beat in the top 10 at Kansas State, those kind of games. And Texas, rose up and made the plays down the stretch to make the difference in the game. So maybe they're at a point right now where they can knock TCU off as well.
All right, Texas favored in this game by 7 when we start the predictions right now. Do you like the Longhorns at home over TCU?
You know what? I'm going to take the Longhorns at home over TCU, but it'll be a tighter game than that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great football game to watch. All right, let's talk about another big game. The Oklahoma Sooners trying to get back into the win column this week, going to be on the road at West Virginia. Get this, an 11 a.m. kickoff. How could that possibly happen? An 11 a.m. kickoff.
That's all we have.
Involving Oklahoma. We are the 11 a.m. school for some crazy reason this year. All right, let's talk a little bit about last week before we dive into this week. There were plays to be made last week for Oklahoma to win this game. They led in a lot of categories: first down, total yards. They did the things that you would think they need to do, but they lost in the turnover battle. And you say this all the time, you lose in the turnover battle, you're probably going to lose on the scoreboard.
Yeah, it is, and it's not a coach's cliche. It's backed up by statistics everywhere. The 3 turnovers we have, we did a heck of a job holding them to 10 points, but the 1 turnover we get, I don't think we scored any points. And the other disparity was 4th downs. They make 3 for 3 on 4th down, and we go 0 for 1 on 4th down on a 1-yard play. So a couple of things, those are big factors in games. The possession downs and turnovers, that controls games. And a little bit just overall, better up front, with both sides of the ball. Be able to pick up that 4th and 1 defense, to be able to make some stops on 4th down, or to get pressure where the quarterback can't find a guy on 4th down to get open. That's got to keep improving, and I'm sure our guys will keep working on that.
Yeah, one of the specific calls, one of the 4th downs on their own 29-yard line, Baylor went on 4th and 1. Those are the calls that get you in a lot of trouble if you don't get them. Obviously, they did get that play. Does that show the real confidence that Coach Aranda had in his offensive line there?
I believe it does. That they felt, that they were controlling the line of scrimmage, that they'd be able to pick it up. Otherwise, he doesn't go for it. So again, those are, again, that's something that we have to keep building on.
What do you think OU needs to do to win the final 3 games this year?
You don't look at 3, you just look at this one. You just take them one at a time. Be as good as you can be going to West Virginia. Get this late in the season, be as fresh as you can be with still getting the amount of work that you need late in the year. And it seems like we're fairly healthy overall. So in that case, just get the guys to the game as excited as they can be and as fresh as they can be to play their best.
And here's the crucial thing. You don't turn the ball over 3 times last week, you don't lose to Baylor.
No, and Baylor's a good team too, and no, they're critical, and it's hard to point a finger anywhere. You sure can't. I don't feel pointed at Dylan Gabriel. The balls are tipped, and one's tipped by our offensive guy, and it's a little behind, but in the end, those things happen, and And again, I think if overall we could be stronger up front on both sides of the ball, we still may have been able to overcome it.
All right, so this game at West Virginia, monster game when it comes to bowl availability for the Oklahoma Sooners. They have to win this game. Like they always say that every game in Norman you have to win. Every game on the road, if you're the Sooners, you have to win. But they really need this one. Do you see the Sooners doing what they need to get done to win on the road?
I do. They still, regardless of the record, have a positive team chemistry, and it's positive in that building. The outside world may not believe that, but I know it to be true. Coach Venables and the staff and the players all connect very well, and they're going to keep fighting through it. And I like the fact that it's at 11. I don't remember ever being there outside, not being a night game.
Right.
And they're all a little bit tanked up and boozed up a little bit, so they're pretty rowdy when I've been in there at night. So I like the fact that we may catch them off of a tough night Friday night, and they may not be ready to go. I don't mean the team, I mean the fans.
The fans, yeah.
I know, they'll do a good job. Neil Brown, the head coach there, does a really good job with that team, but I'm always going to be positive about the Sooners and feel they'll come out and play their best.
Hoping for a big win on Saturday. Of course, other games of interest. LSU will be traveling to Arkansas. Again, LSU had a huge win at home against Alabama last week, going for 2 with Brian Kelly. Believe it or not, this is a 3-point game. That's right, a 3-point game to Arkansas, who lost to Liberty last week. How do you think this one's going to turn out?
Yeah, I like Sam Pittman and the job they're doing at Arkansas, the head coach there at Arkansas. It surprised me last week, although Liberty's a good team.
Yeah.
People may not realize that,
Hugh Freeze is 8-1. They're
yeah,
good.
Exactly. Better than you want them to be for that name, And this is a game that LSU can get caught in, and Arkansas's kind of stewing over that loss, getting criticized all week. LSU's getting pat on the back all week. It's in Arkansas. These are the kind that can sometimes slip up and get you. So I'm going to take Arkansas to surprise everybody.
And to your point, Coach, I think it would have been laughable 4 weeks ago with the way LSU was playing that I would even mention in a November show LSU potentially in a college football playoff game. They're getting a lot of praise this week, and when you're 18, 19, and 20 years old, you can lose focus real quickly, and you're playing on the road in the SEC.
Yeah, exactly, and all that celebrating against Alabama, and to me, I'd have tried to temper that as much as I can. You didn't win any championships there last week, so yeah. So anyway. But we'll see where it goes. But this is a setup game for them, definitely a trap game as they call it.
Yep. All right, speaking of Alabama, they're going to be on the road at Mississippi this week, taking on Ole Miss. They're favored by 12 points against Ole Miss, a really good football team. And I think you're going to have a really angry Alabama team as well.
Yeah, Coach Saban doesn't generally lose back-to-back games. I bet it's probably never happened. So, anyway, and Ole Miss, I thought they got lucky beating Kentucky overall. Kentucky had some mishaps, missing a short field goal or an extra point, whatnot. And Alabama's going to be stewing, so it would surprise me if Alabama doesn't win it.
See the Tide in a bounce-back game. All right, let's talk a little bit closer to home here in Oklahoma. Iowa State at Oklahoma State. 3 weeks ago, Oklahoma State was being mentioned as a potential playoff team. Now they're just battling to try to make their way through and get a good bowl game, because that's how bad things are in Stillwater right now with injuries. Iowa State is actually favored. That's right. Iowa State, which was winless in conference 2 weeks ago, is now favored on the road in Stillwater by 1 point.
Yeah, and you have to remember Iowa State's been in a lot of really close games. Yes. And I know people don't want to hear that. You still lost. It matters to me the manner in which you lose if you're competitive. Iowa State players, I know that program, the way they are, will never give up, never give in. Mm-hmm. They're going to battle you to the end, and they're more healthy right now than Oklahoma State is, and just got to win and get a little positive energy going. So I think it's going to be tough for Oklahoma State if Spencer Sanders, and I don't know anything about his health status, but it just feels to me like he's got a significant injury, and if he's not playing, they're going to be in trouble.
And I'll say this.
And they seem to have other injuries.
Yeah, they've got a number of injuries across the ball, and I'm not trying to compare Oklahoma State and OU. They're really good when they have their starters. They really are. If you have Dylan Gabriel playing at quarterback at his best, they're good. Sanders at Oklahoma State, they're good. But if they don't, unfortunately, the number twos and number threes have not looked good when they had the opportunity.
Yeah, just the opportunities they have been limited, but they haven't been very, very positive, to say it in the best way you can.
Yeah, I like Iowa State on the road. All right, UCF at Tulane. It's hard to believe that we're talking about two ranked teams in the college football playoff right now. UCF at Tulane. Tulane 8-1. Of course, they won at Kansas State. Do you like Tulane winning at home?
I do. At home, the fact that they went on the road and beat a really good Kansas State team that we've all watched.
Yeah.
So they've got to be for real in what they're doing, and the fact that they're at home, I would definitely give them the edge.
All right, Georgia Bulldogs looking like the national champion we thought they would be starting the season after such a big, impressive win against Tennessee. They're going to be on the road at Mississippi State this week as they're favored by 17 points, taking on Mike Leach and the Bulldogs.
I love Mike Leach, and the way he folds up chairs, whatever he does, he's really good. But I just feel when you go in for the most part, one-dimensional throwing the football, that plays right into Georgia's hands. They've got great DBs. They can get a pass rush. So I just think they'll force them into too many problems with sacks or tips and some turnovers, those kind of things. So I would definitely favor Georgia.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State's a top 16 team in the country. I think they're really, really good.
Agreed.
I think Georgia's the best team in the country, and I think you're going to see that on Saturday.
Yeah, and they plays into their hands just the way they play, and they defensively they just cover you and get pressure, and offensively they're both they do a great job mixing run and pass, and they just look too strong right now.
All right, last game on the Pick'em, North Carolina, Wake Forest. Both teams ranked. Wake Forest -3.5, and you got that game right last week with Wake Forest.
Yeah, we'll see. they seem to have something going. So I think, and I can't say I haven't seen North Carolina really at all this year to really have an opinion, but it just seems like Wake is really playing well.
Yeah, that Finding Nemo, they say just keep swimming. Well, North Carolina just keeps winning. I don't know how it is, but they don't look very impressive in some of their games, but they're finding a way to win week in and week out.
Yeah, I give it to Mac Brown too. Love it for him. It's great that they're, like you said, finding ways to win is a big deal. To me, that always does, in a way, reflect back to coaching when you find the right plays, the right situations, timing on the clock, whatever, to find ways to win is a big deal.
All right, so if you're right and TCU loses at Texas this week, how do you think, going into the second week here of November, the Final Four, the college football playoff, who do you see making the playoff this year?
Oh, man.
It's hard now with all the different scenarios.
What can happen? Definitely the two that stand out to me are Georgia and Ohio State.
Yeah.
To me, they're different. Ohio State, Jim Knowles has done such a good job with their defense, which they've always been good offensively, and this is really setting them apart. And that's why I think they're going to be hard to deal with. It'll be interesting if Michigan's, how they finish. And you keep waiting for them to lose, so you got to give it to Jim Harbaugh. So they're going to be in that, in that equation. And even if they have one loss to Ohio State, they still may be in it.
That's correct.
And then who else
You got the potential of Oregon getting in somehow, some way, but that first game, losing 49 points to Georgia is just hard to overlook.
Right. And Oregon, USC, UCLA here, one of them here through the end, depending on how that goes, could be in it. That's going to be really interesting to follow all those. And Utah, they got to play. So, and a Pac-12 championship game. So there's a lot of good football to be played yet in that league. That'll be interesting to watch. And then kind of how this Big 12 unfolds is going to be interesting down the stretch here with injuries and who can beat who.
Yeah, and the other part is if TCU somehow, some way wins at Texas and stays undefeated, will they remain undefeated winning a Big 12 championship game? That bonus game could be really interesting as well. I think in the ACC, you picked the game last week with Notre Dame being at home against Clemson. Boy, oh boy, Clemson just did not look like a Final Four team last week.
Well, I don't think many times this year they have. So, and that's what I felt. I felt they were lucky at Syracuse in the way they played to win and some breaks the way it happened for them. So I haven't felt overall that they've controlled their destiny by the way they're playing. They've been pretty lucky or fortunate in some games, and then it caught up to them with Notre Dame, was just more physical overall. And I think their quarterback play, obviously, I don't like to ever pull out young people's names, but obviously they're having a challenging time there. They've taken their quarterback out now the last two games, and it didn't work for them this time coming back. So and I felt that through the year that, that position isn't what they've overall been used to playing with.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. A lot more football still to be played before we get to that Final Four. Remember, for videos anytime, just click on our video link. For Coach Bob Stoops, I'm Brad McCoy.